Today we're exposing the top 10 lies the royal family has told about their wealth. Starting off with number 10, the royal treatment is a real thing proven by King Charles III, who does not have to pay a dime in inheritance taxes. This is a win for Charles since he gained a rather large inheritance after the unfortunate passing of his mother, Queen Liz. In comparison, regular British folk have to pay around 40% in taxes on an inheritance on anything upwards of $375,000. The decision that the British monarch would not have to pay an inheritance tax came about in 1993 when former Prime Minister John Major agreed to a tax arrangement with the royal family. Major said, in the unique circumstances of a hereditary monarchy, special arrangements are needed for inheritance tax. I guess instead of eating the rich, we're treating the rich. Forbes estimated he inherited his mother's portfolio worth $500 million, to which not a dime goes anywhere except the king, including the $42 billion fortune belonging to the crown. This tax deal also exempts them from paying income tax, a deal to which Queen Elizabeth and now King Charles both agreed to do so anyway. So if you ever wanted to know how to stay rich, the easiest way to do so is by being a royal to avoid paying taxes. Number 9 on our countdown, I'm still trying to figure out how I can insert myself into the royal family to avoid taxes, but let's talk about their multiple iconic properties. I understand that they're royal, but sometimes it just feels like they're showing off. Along with having Buckingham Palace under the belt, the royals have made a point to invest in numerous properties across the country and even internationally. But forget about all that for a second. I have a theory that all these properties actually have secret passageways and lead to other worlds. Or what if they're all connected? Yeah, they have a pretty big family and investing in property is a great source of income, but when it comes to these mysterious royals, there has to be more than what is shown on surface level, right? With a total of 30 regal estates, the family owns a 50,000-acre estate in Norfolk, the infamous Kensington Palace, a couple cottages, castles, forts, and more. By the time I finish this list, I think the next in line of succession will be appointed, so all I'm gonna say is that the double-digit number of properties are nothing less than intriguing. Fun fact, if you ever wanted to stay at a new property every month, it would take 2.5 years to finish the tour. Seriously, I need to find out how to become a royal expeditiously. At some point, we're gonna have to talk about the difference in the lifestyle of the royal family compared to literally everyone else. Unlike government officials, the family does not have to disclose non-public information and can keep whatever they like a secret. Anything can be kept a secret, so they're literally above the law. If this family is actually a bunch of aliens who just decided they'll be living completely different lives than everyone, for one, we'd never know unless they wanted to share that information with us, and two, no one can really go interrogating or investigating this family. That's kind of flabbergasting if you ask me. The late Queen, to a degree, had an open door policy in which she was okay with sharing information, but we have seen times where major court cases go away from the public eye and fast. And just in case you're wondering, staff needs to sign NDAs that make sure that they don't expose information against the royal family's will. Aside from the fact that Liz was a queen for nearly 70 years, being one of the wealthiest women in the world comes with a price. People who are out here trying to get rid of you. Did you know that every time the Queen visits the state opening of Parliament, the royal household must take a hostage? As much as it sounds like a movie, that is in fact true. The rule dates back to the time when Parliament and the royals were not besties. To assure the Queen would return safely, the royal household thought it was best to take a member of Parliament with them to the ceremony in case anything bad were to happen to the late Queen. And this still happens to this day, despite the fact that the relationship between the royals and Parliament isn't terrible anymore. But it's just a precaution. The chosen MP is kept perfectly safe and taken care of throughout the ceremony. So it's definitely risky, but why not chill out with the royals for a bit, right? I mean, it's not like they'd have a choice. On to number 6, speaking of not having a choice when it comes to the head of the monarch, the royal family's protection officers are literally paid to put the royals before themselves. As wild as it is to think about, protection officers will put their own lives at risk to save the monarchy. And yeah, it might be good money, but at the risk of your own life is kind of insane to think about. I don't know how much money I would be willing to accept if it were to protect someone else's life. Would Would you do it? It's pretty common with most protection services when it comes to important people, and we've seen it in action movies during assassination attempts where the security makes the heroic dive. Having that much wealth really comes with a price tag. You can either live rich or lose your life saving the rich person. When it comes to living large, the royal family is never shy about their well-funded trips. Their huge travel budget has more to do than just them having a lot of money. If you're regal, you gotta live it up. It's the only way. With one trip back in 2017 costing them $5.8 million, it puts into perspective how much thought they must be putting when traveling. Their tradition is more of a protocol based around security fears. Family members of the same line are not allowed to travel in the same plane together, so that in case of an accident, wiping the royal lineage is prevented. That tradition has only once been broken by Prince William when he flew to Canada in the same plane as Prince George, who will succeed him one day in the future. He did, however, ask for the Queen's permission beforehand. It still was a risky move. A few other protocols they follow when traveling include color-coded luggage, sticking with an entourage, and packing a black outfit just in case they need to attend an emergency funeral. They also take extremely short trips. When you're as regal as the royals and are known for your wealth, it is a precaution not to trust anyone, not even yourself. Out of fear of being poisoned, the royals have to avoid certain foods such as shellfish when they eat out so they don't run the risk of getting food poisoning. Similarly, they skip rare red meat, so they may be eating good, but they're missing out on the really good stuff. I cannot imagine giving up shrimp or oysters. They're just too good to risk out of fear of food poisoning. Another way the royals prevent any sort of food-related mishap, they do the absolute most to ensure the food they're eating is safe. When catering for the royals' engagements in Wales, a satellite kitchen was set up in the grounds of Cardiff Castle. Then food would be transferred into the banquet on foot. If catering was done for a heads of state banquet, the catering staff would have to meet at a police station and get a motorcycle ride into Cardiff Castle. For higher caliber banquets, they were required to put all food, containers, knives, and kitchen equipment through an X-ray machine, followed by a ride to the castle on a motorcycle. Talk about having a large budget. X-ray machines for food is crazy to think about, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Sometimes when you're insanely rich, you just gotta have duplicates of all your outfits. Moving on to number 3, the royals think of everything when it comes to how they're presenting themselves when stepping out the castle. Just in case of spills or stains, the royals make sure they have an easy to change duplicate of their outfit. I get it, with the amount of pics that are taken of the family, I would hate finding out I had pasta sauce on my shirt all day through pictures. The types of things this family thinks about make us laugh, but they're really serious about certain things that we would literally never think about. The royal protocols are no joke to these regal people. But again, it all comes down to the massive wealth they have. They have the time and energy to think about and afford certain things that wouldn't make sense to us regular people. Counting down to number 2, the bloodline runs deep, and there are definitely a lot of things members of the family aren't familiar with. As they say, a lot of things can be taken to the grave, except when there are people curious enough to go discover some stuff out for themselves. As we all know, the royals have been exposed countless times throughout the history of the monarchy. As rich as they are, one can only imagine the possible ways their wealth has been accumulated, and tax fraud is in fact on the list. The late Queen Liz was once exposed for hiding her embarrassing wealth from the public. Imagine being so rich you yourself are embarrassed by it. That doesn't even make sense to my regular non-royal brain. Queen Liz's private lawyer was said to literally change laws so that accurate information about her wealth would not be disclosed to the public. And although the true scale of how much the Queen was holding onto was never publicly announced, we can only assume it's no less than hundreds of millions of pounds. Her Royal Highness invested at least $13 million into offshore tax-sheltered funds in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda. This led party leaders and anti-monarchists towards an investigation of the Queen's private funds, which led them to discover that the Queen was avoiding $15 million in taxes on her $680 million duchy. If that isn't some royalty, I don't know what is. And last on the list of top 10 lies the royal family has told about their wealth, the family will do anything to keep the wealth within the family, and I mean anything. Marrying inside the family is a common theme when it comes to how these royal couples came to be. As sick as it is to us, the monarchy keeps their fortune as close to the family as possible by marrying their own relatives. In no way can I defend the royals here because that is definitely sick behavior, but I'm sure it's easier to introduce your partner to your family, and you don't even have to worry about whether or not the family would like them. Everyone talks about their family tree, but I'd say it's more of a wreath if you start counting the number of times their relationships wrap around. When looking back at the reign of Queen Victoria, her 63 years and 216 days of rule became known as the Victorian era, a period even non-history buffs have heard of. What some may not know about Miss Vicky is that she married her cousin. The couple first met on Victoria's 17th birthday in April 1836 when she was heir to the British throne. Their uncle King Leopold I introduced them. In their memoirs, Albert and Victoria record that they almost instantly fell in love. I have no words. Together, the cousins went on to have 9 children together, 4 boys and 5 girls. So if their kids wanted to ask how they met, would they be all like, yeah, I fell in love with my cousin during a family function? That is wild. The cousin-loving gene was passed further down the family tree, or wreath, whatever we want to call it. The romanticization of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth's relationship wasn't enough to overshadow their relations like it was with Victoria and Albert. Philip was related to Queen Victoria as a great-great-grandson through his maternal side, and while Liz was related to Queen Victoria from her father's side. I'm sure there have been many other occasions of royal DNA sharing, but spouse sharing is another interesting aspect of royal life. In 1970, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's only daughter, Princess Anne, once dated Andrew Park Bowles. Just a few years later, Andrew went on to marry Camilla, who married Charles in 2005 after having a long affair with him during his marriage to Princess Diana. If you couldn't catch all that, I'll make it easier for you. So imagine your sibling marrying someone who shares the same ex as you. Weird. A lot of passing around going on behind the royal palace doors. If that wasn't weird enough, sibling hopping has happened in the royal family too. Are we shocked? As a prince, Charles and Princess Diana were married for 15 years, which is impressive considering their rocky relationship and many affairs. However, the two were actually introduced by Diana's sister, Sarah, whom Prince Charles dated prior to his relationship with Diana. While not illegal or technically wrong, this information detail about the king is bizarre. Rich people, man, they're weird. That's all for today's top 10. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time on The Rich Life.